Good evening, everyone. Ian Patrick here, and tonight I'm talking about one of my favorite actors. Clearly, he's one of my favorite actors, Errol Flynn. We're talking about one of his films. Tonight, we're going to talk about Gentleman Jim. Now, this was quite a pleasure for me to watch because I had never seen this one growing up. This one flew under the radar. Usually, I would watch his more swashbuckler films where he's with the sword and all that, but in this movie, it's Errol and his fists and his charm. So, Gentleman Jim came out in 1942. It's, of course, a Warner Bros. Picture directed by Raoul Walsh. We've seen quite a bit of his films on this channel. It stars Errol Flynn. If Errol Flynn's in it, you got to have Alan Hale in there. So, Alan Hale's in this. Alan Hale plays his father, and Errol plays this boxer named James Corbett, who was a real person in history, but we'll get to all that. This stars Alexis Smith as well, who plays his love interest, who sort of a boring love interest in this, I must say, right from the start. Jack Carson plays his friend. Jack Carson was in a lot of pictures from back in the day. You'll recognize him when you see his face. And we also have Ward Bond, of course, if you love old movies, you know who he is. He's been in so many westerns, especially with John Wayne. But Ward Bond, oh my gosh, he was so big in this. Like, he had the biggest chest and just the biggest arms in this. I was shocked. I had no idea Ward Bond was that ripped. And he plays John L. Sullivan, another real boxer in American history. And he was basically Errol Flynn's rival towards the end. He was huge. So, like I sort of mentioned, this is based off a real story from the 1880s. It takes place in San Francisco, and Errol Flynn plays a real character, James Corbett. In the picture, he starts out as a bank teller who sort of stumbles his way into a fancy socialite club and eventually joins a boxing club, and he just keeps winning all his matches. And anyway, so it's about an Irish American fighter who in real life became a heavyweight champion under the new Marquis of Queensberry rules. So sort of the new formal boxing rules, because before that it was the Wild West of boxing, and boxing fights would be broken up by the police all the time. So I want to start out by saying that Errol Flynn did all of his stunts, and Errol was extremely proud of this. And also the sets in this film were incredible. Warner Brothers really never spared a dime when it came to building amazing sets. I've noticed that from watching movies from back then. And for instance, later in the film, in the ultimate fight, it really looked like they were fighting in like Madison Square Garden, but I think it was really supposed to be in a New Orleans arena. The New Orleans scenes, the scenes in San Francisco, my favorite part of the movie is a huge fight at these docks with a giant ship, old ship, which was actually the same exact ship used in Errol Flynn's the Seahawk. Fun fact. So that was my favorite scene of the movie. Now, Errol is as charming as ever as James Corbett in this film. He's truly a gentleman. You'll see his smile, his laugh plenty of times, his tooth and grin smile. And so he just shines in this sort of role where he's a cocky, arrogant, but nice fellow who is also dashing and fights and beats everyone, always wins. So like I mentioned, he starts out as a bank teller. There's this side love story in the film with Alexis Smith, and to me this is sort of my biggest complaint of the entire film, where it fell a little short, was their love interest, but it didn't affect the majority of the movie. Alexis Smith sort of just always seemed uninterested in Errol and sort of cold to him. And then, spoiler, at the end, all of a sudden she's in love with him. I know they tried to make it seem like, oh, she's super jealous and wants him to fail, but really she's jealous. But honestly, to the very end, I didn't even sense a spark. And Errol is such a different sort of character. I can't see him with a girl like her. But regardless, the fight scenes of this is very, very much where the film shines. Watch Errol's feet when he's boxing. Now, I believe that was really his feet. I've heard it was a trainer's feet, but I'm pretty sure it was Errol's feet because he claims he did all his stunts. And apparently, this is what James Corbett was famous for, was sort of that dancing motion when boxers are boxing. And I love the camera angle zoomed in on Errol's feet when he's doing the dance boxing. And also in the fight scenes, I love the crowd's reactions, such as Errol Flynn's family in it, like Alan Hill and just his brothers, just watching them really get into the fight, watching and just, feeling every punch and just wanting their brother and son to win. So you definitely get into the scenes when you watch this. But like I said, my favorite scene was the boxing scene at the docks, because it's an incredible scene, like how it's filmed from away, and you see the water around him with the old ship and from the Seahawk, and the police show up and they all dive into the water at the end, and it's just amazing. I'll never forget that scene. And the ending fight was also pretty spectacular when he's fighting against Ward Bond's character, John L. Sullivan, and apparently that was a real fight that James Corbett did win and take the heavyweight champion away, but apparently they were a little bit more bitter towards each other in real life than what we see in the picture. But it looked like a real arena, like I said at the end, which was awesome. I am going to give this movie a 3.5 stars, which is very high. Like I said, it was totally unexpected to like this movie so much. It's not perfect because, like I said, the romance in this movie just felt extremely forced on it, and also some of the funny comic relief scenes with his family seemed a little forced. I feel like this movie could have been awesome as just a drama, or with some of Errol's fun charm in the movie, but overall the romance sort of hurt the picture a little bit, I would say. So 3.5 stars is very good. Errol is perfect in it, playing himself, that charming guy who gets away with everything. Apparently during production, during one of the fight scenes, Errol did have a heart attack on set, which obviously halted filming for a little bit and resulted in him, that heart attack, he couldn't fight in World War II, interestingly enough, which I'm sure devastated him because he would have loved to have fought in World War II. And also right after this picture, his rape case was going on, and Warner Bros. Really wanted to get this movie released ASAP before the rape case verdict, or I'm not sure if it was the verdict or it began. So the picture itself was a huge success. It was the third film by Errol to gross, I believe, $3 million to Warner Brothers. So this was Errol at his peak. I have some pictures I'll show you real quick, and then I'll read some of his autobiography. I love that picture. I believe that's the end fight. There he is with Alan Hale, his dad. And really, I might add that you don't have to love sports to really enjoy this film. That's a great shot right there. So let's take a look at his book, and he has a really funny snippet. People claim that Errol said this was his favorite movie to film. He doesn't exactly say that. He says it's one of his favorites. So he said, "You can usually trust a good stuntman if you know him, but this doesn't always hold. I ran into trouble, but delightful trouble, while making a favorite picture, Gentleman Jim. The idea was for me, and the role was for me." He's saying that they basically made this with him in mind. Was for me, in the role of the cocky young unknown Jim Corbett, to have 6 fights on my way to take the championship. This was a picture I made with Raoul Walsh while Jack Warner was away. Alexis Smith was the girl lead. We decided to take advantage of Jack's absence by tossing into the story a lot of whimsy that he might not have allowed. Cracks like when Jim is reading his fan mail and comes upon a letter from George Bernard Shaw, whom he has never heard of, quote, "Hey, bub, read this. This here one is good. Some bum signs himself George Bernard Shaw. Says he's written a play about a boxer. Wants me to play in it." End quote. That line in print might not mean much, but on the screen, limiting a simple Irish fellow on his way could have been a laugh, especially from Shaw fans. I don't really exactly get that reference, but maybe some of you do. But here's the really funny story. Okay. So I reached the stage. He's talking about his fighting scene. I reached the stage in the film where I waged this championship fight with an excellent and tough fighter, Jack Loper. Let's get it straight. I'll go down. He's telling him the directions of the fight scene. "I'll go down," I said, "then get up and you throw again. Then I'll step to the side. By this time I will be in the lights." This meant the shot should be complete, with the exchange of blows looking very effective. Instead, in the first poke he took, he landed on my chin, changed the shot entirely, and jarred the liver out of me. I swung an unrehearsed punch back at him. He shot a terrific one up to my chin, and I was out for 2 hours. Waking up in the first aid room, I had talked with Loper. He was remorseful, said it was an accident. "Very well," I said. "We try again." Once more I explained how the blow should go. Camera action. On the first punch, he lifted me right off the floor, and down I went, and again I was hauled off into the first aid room. The production manager said, "I think we've had a pretty hard day, haven't we? You must be mad as hell at Loper." "No, but I would like to have a little chat with him." Loper came to my side, tears streaming down his face. "Buddy," I began, "did somebody put you up to this? Somebody around here that doesn't like me?" He blubbered with apology. He wept. I was the last one in the world he would want to hurt. "I tell you what I'm going to do," I proposed. "You know those 4 corner posts?" He asked. "What posts?" "The posts of the rings," I said. "Yeah. I'm going to do one more shot with you. If you miss this time, I can honestly promise you that bottle down there," I pointed to a champagne bottle, "will break your skull and you will never see again. This is my personal guarantee," I told him. We were both unnerved. I poured champagne and we drank to the next take. I warned him once more as we entered the ring. There were only 4 punches he had to remember. "If you can't remember them without pushing me into those lights or without knocking me cold, I'm going to retaliate." I had to clear up what the word retaliate meant. His eyes widened at my translation. "It means I will break your effing head in." By now, nice old Jack was petrified. He covered when I hit. He shuffled away from me. Finally, to make him come out fighting, I did an unforgivable thing. I hit him right in the nuts. That revived his fighting spirit. He came out. He landed a tremendous one on my jaw, and I went down for the 3rd time out. 3 times in one day. I was fed up. A badly beaten actor. I took 3 days off. For once, I loved making a picture. So, Errol loved making the picture, one of his favorites. I certainly enjoyed it, and I highly recommend you all watch it. Have a good one, everyone.